You said, like, I think your exact words were, I am horrific at that one.
All caps. Horrific.
I'm so bad at this. Like, really, we're all bad at this. It's like something that you have to actively pursue and get better at.
Hello,
Welcome
or welcome back,
to the Womanly Podcast,
where we embrace womanhood in its entirety.
From the hard and awkward conversations
to the silly and embarrassing moments.
An effort to reclaim and redefine what it means to be womanly in this crazy, wacky world. I'm Delana, the neutral one.
I'm Katie, the morbid one.
And I'm Madeline, the other one. And we're so excited that you've joined us today because there's room for you at our table.
So, grab your favorite drink and let's have a conversation.
Well, today is exciting because we have our guest with us that I alluded to in the last episode we recorded. So McKenzie, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is McKenzie, and I don't know what I'm supposed to say about myself, but I am 29 years old. I live in Roanoke, Texas with my husband, Zach, and our little border collie mix, Rocket. So I love all of the pet photos that I see shared on your Instagram page. So Rocket is the love of our life. He is all we got right now, but we've been married about 1.5 years now. We bought our house in Roanoke coming up on 1 year, and we love it out there. I work for a large hotel here in DFW, and I work in human resources. I do training, and I kind of help with the hiring side of things, but more than anything, I do the help you like your job part of the job, which is really
that's
cool.
so
That's
nice.
That's so cool.
I love it. So people come and meet with me if they're like for a lot of different reasons, but I get to do like career coaching, and not that I'm like an expert on telling anybody what to do with their life, but I get to help people kind of figure out what are those skills they need to have to move on to the next thing, which is really, really fun and really cool.
Yeah, that's
so
nice.
cool.
Love that. I read a lot.
You're like 30 books in already this year, aren't you?
I am, yeah.
Shut up.
Wow.
Audiobooks. I never did them before like the last year, and they've changed my whole life. And I love to read. I usually finish about a book a week or so. I know that I'm in the company of a couple fellow Taylor Swift fans, which is extremely important to me. Huge Swiftie.
Yay.
Love her so much. I'd love to come back on the podcast to do a Taylor episode.
Girl, you can invited.
Yeah, you can take my place that night.
If Madeline's ever traveling, can't make it, feel free to tap
I'm like,
me
I will be
in.
silent that whole episode.
Aside from her, like the spectacle of what goes into planning her her events and stuff,
Yes.
which I can speak to. Other than that, and I've been to one of her concerts before, so I can actually speak to that.
Which is
but
how I don't understand how you're not a super fan.
know.
It makes
Oh my
no sense to
God.
me.
it's not my. I'm not like into the super poppy like
I know.
Radio
That's not your
popular
thing.
kind of music. So
Yeah.
I listen to a lot of rock and jazz and stuff. So it's just. Nothing against her at all. I loved her in the very beginning because it was like I was at the perfect age where
Yeah.
I was like 13 or 14.
When you're 15.
Yeah.
And Delana, look, she's like a twin of Taylor Swift a lot of
Yeah,
times.
100%.
Whenever
So
I have
she
my
is-
natural hair,
Yeah.
I believe it.
wear the red
So-
lipstick.
Yeah.
I went to a Taylor Swift concert and I was going to the bathroom and this little girl was like, she looks just like Taylor.
That's such a compliment. I literally always thought you looked like Taylor.
Yeah.
You do.
Yeah.
So
I
I need
also
to-
have a lot of her mannerisms because I'm just
You do.
long and lanky like
Yes.
her. So
Yeah.
Do you dance like her?
probably. Yeah, probably. Not that great.
So yeah, you can take my place on that
I
episode.
would love to.
Yeah.
She's amazing in every way. But yeah, that's mostly about me. I'm from a small town, big family that I'm pretty close with. I don't know why I said pretty. I'm super close
You're
with.
super close,
probably too close to some people, but they're great people, and we all love each other. And my sister lives up here. My parents visit pretty often. So that's a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
And
awesome.
I'm super excited to have her here. She's actually one of my friends from college. We went to Texas Tech in our undergrad together. So what all are we drinking today?
I am drinking I'm on a new diet, so I am drinking not by choice, by the way. Doctor's orders.
Yeah, doctor's orders.
So it's just coffee with unsweetened nut pods creamer, and I am obsessed with nut pods now because it's like the only super good unsweet creamer. It's so good, and it's like so creamy.
It
And
is
usually
really
I
good.
don't like any creamers that have coconut milk in them, but this one is an almond coconut hybrid, and which I've had that before as well. But this one, I feel like I don't have that weird aftertaste that coconut usually gives me.
Yeah.
So
It is
I'm
really
obsessed.
Well, I'm glad you're enjoying it.
Yeah.
Because I know sometimes starting those things and having to say bye to.
Mhm.
especially
Oh, it's
your
been
morning,
emotional.
Your morning coffee is like
Yeah.
hard to break up with.
It's been emotional, and it has fully exposed actually my the fact that I have way more comfort dependencies and control issues than I thought I had, because I realized that I was trying to I wanted to cook for myself so much because it was giving me I was trying to give myself a sense of control over the situation that I just didn't have, and the diet was way too overwhelming. I couldn't find things that I could make for myself other than one thing that I've found so far. So I have a company that cooks for me. They send the meals here, but yeah, I think it's been really good for me in that regard. Like I'm all for, because of therapy, things that expose the underlying issues, it's just, but it has been emotional.
Yeah.
So.
That's tough.
Yeah.
Well, at least you've got a coffee creamer, so you can enjoy that every morning.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it does kind of feel liberating to get over your sugar addictions.
Oh yeah.
Everybody has a sugar addiction, you know what I'm saying? And so
No. I don't know what you're talking about.
Shut your mouth.
I'm sorry, what are you drinking?
I don't.
Definitely has a lot of sugar in it. Yeah, I have a Starbucks iced coffee that has cream and then hazelnut, pumps of hazelnut in it. So
Yum.
yeah, I've been making my own iced coffee at home the last week or so, which has been great because I'm learning you can make it as big as you want and exactly how you want it, and you can make it as many times as you want throughout the day. So it's been really wonderful.
You know what I found out yesterday? I love Dutch Bros. I love it more than Starbucks, actually. Don't come at me. But Dutch Bros, you can go and buy a 92 ounce of whatever drink you want to drink it over the course of however long you want to drink it.
Morning.
The morning. She's like, Madeline's like, that's just one day. What are you
92
talking about?
before noon.
In college, basically, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm
92
better
before
these
noon.
days.
I'm imagining a brewery whenever they sell you a growler of beer is a growler of coffee.
Yeah. We got to get to what Katie's drinking before she finishes it again.
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm drinking my good old iced vanilla chai that I finish almost always before we even get started because it's that good.
But not this time.
Yeah.
I feel like she's been sitting there come on.
Get to me before I finish it.
Finish my drink.
Yeah.
Oh, and I am drinking an Americano today, courtesy of the lovely Madeline. Thank you. I don't really like sweet hot things at all. I will, if you give me a Frappuccino, I will down it before the podcast begins every time. I love that. But if it's hot, and it's sweet, I don't like
different.
it.
It is different.
It
Way
is.
different.
It's kind of like the thing of you not liking the coconut milk aftertaste. I feel like if I drink something hot and sweet, it's it stays in my mouth, and I'm I'm gonna brush my teeth. I don't like
I
this.
Yeah.
know exactly how you feel. That's
Yeah.
so weird that you.
Does it make your mouth feel thick or coated?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't like the idea of my mouth
Thick,
thick.
coated
But
mouth.
coated. Yeah. I know what you're
Yes.
talking about. So, what's taking up most of your headspace right now?
What's taking most of my headspace right now, currently, right now, it just happened 5 minutes ago.
Okay.
Is that my brother-in-law has COVID, so we can't meet for Mother's Day tomorrow, and I'm sad about that.
Oh
no.
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
That sucks.
So now I'm just kind of well, that's taking up my headspace.
Oh.
Well, I'm
So
sorry to
that
hear
makes
that.
sense.
I'm
okay.
I'm really looking forward to the day, and it may never happen where we don't have to do that anymore.
I know. Yeah.
I have an event in a little bit that I've been working on for a little while, and I feel like it's one of those events that has kind of been a back burner for me and my team as a whole. We've recently kind of all in our own way collectively been going through burnout together, which is kind of funny. But at least we're all in the same headspace.
Is it because of work that you guys are burnt out?
I think it's a myriad of things. I mean, we've kind of hit a little bit. We don't really have much of a lull because we put on over 60 events a year. We had this big event that I talked about earlier this year in March, and that took so much of our willpower and all of our focus, and everything went into that. And I think kind of finally coming off of that event, we've all just kind of collectively gotten to a point where we just have to breathe a little bit.
Yeah.
And now we're getting back to the point where things get busy again. So this event kind of has been a little bit of a back burner for us, and we've just had some things slip through and all that. It's going to be great because we've sold out, which is awesome. But I'm just kind of looking forward to that being over because it is at this point taking up a lot of my brain space.
Yeah. Well, mine is an exciting one. So I'm going a week from today. I will be on an airplane, and I'm going with my mom and my sister and my sister's husband and kids and all of her in-laws to Turks and Caicos.
Oh, nice.
My gosh.
So my mom went, my sister and my brother-in-law take their kids every year. My mom went with them last year and had such an amazing time and was like, this was so fun. I got to bring your dad back here. Well, my dad, he's had a lot going on. He sold a business this year and just couldn't really think through going on a vacation that long with all the timelines of everything. So he told her he wouldn't go with her, and she was really, really bummed, and she was going to cancel. And then she called me and said, hey, I booked this trip for me and your dad, but he doesn't want to go. I think I might cancel. Do you want to go? I was like, yeah, I want to go. So we got an email a couple of weeks ago, and I guess she didn't realize whenever she booked it that it was a like a romance package.
Oh.
So my mom and I are going to have a romantic couples massage by the sea. Oh, and she was like, I hope it's okay. Our room only has one bed. And I was like, yeah, I'm fine with that. And she was like, and apparently it's a romance package, so there might be rose petals on it. I don't know.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
Amazing.
So
my gosh.
I'm super excited for that. But my headspace this week has been, and really the last 2 weeks has been just like trying to get stuff in order for work and leaving behind everything, what I'm going to do. And also trying to squeeze in being like a caring and good wife, which I am not always whenever I'm tied up and busy with stuff. Yeah. So I'm trying. Zach and I are going to spend a lot of time together, just us this weekend and everything, because you know he can't go on the romantic getaway that me and my mom are taking.
I have a couple of things. One, if I haven't talked about enough already, my diet takes up like my entire, because it's a diet and it's a pretty intense supplement regimen.
Yeah.
And I have to be like very on top of it and make sure I'm hitting everything. So that is like literally at the forefront of my mind 24 hours a day right now.
Yeah.
But also at work, I just pitched to my boss. I was like, because I am taking over company operations, but I'm still doing client work, and that's a really hard tension, and it makes for a really difficult workflow to like always be a beck and call for clients and then also try to work on all of these systems. And it's much different from your job. It's like I'm kind of helping people be happy, but whenever it comes to systems and operations and automations, nobody's ever 100% satisfied.
No.
There's always a problem. And so it's like mine is more like, how can I create the least amount of problems for everybody? So, but I just pitched to him. I was like, because he needs a producer right now to run all of the social medias. And so I was like, you should let me do that. Get out of client work. The new person that you're bringing on, let them take over my client work. Let me do that. It'll make a really streamlined workflow for me, and I'll be really freaking good at it. I promise you, it will be the best producer you've ever had.
That's amazing.
And so
Look at you speaking up for yourself.
what kind of started all of it was that I told the producer, I was like, I don't think I have time to help you guys create content, like with client work and everything. I can't do it. And then the whole week after I said that, it's not surprising, say, with you guys knowing me, but I didn't expect myself to feel this way, where I felt so bummed afterwards. I was like, I can't create content. And I even went back and I watched some of the old videos that I had created for their channel, and I was like, and so that's what brought me to say, like, hey, tell him, like, I was way more bummed about this than I thought I was going to be. So since this is in a transition stage, just let me transition into it. And
Well, good for you, though. That's exciting.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So today we are talking about speaking up for yourself, which is, we're all that's wonderful at that. Yeah.
I'm uncomfortable.
As women, this has been a learned thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Can I say that my reaction text to you asking me to come on the podcast? I think that would be a good spot to start.
Oh, yeah. Here, let's see what she said.
She sends me a text and she says, hey, we're looking for some guests for our podcast. I thought that you'd be great. And I was so flattered. And I was like, yes, absolutely. What's the topic? And she sent me 4 to choose from, and they were all great. But the very top one was like obviously related to speaking up for yourself. And she texted me about 30 minutes after I had finally finished having like a crying meltdown due to me not standing up for myself very well at work. And that does not happen to me very often. Like, I'm pretty tough. And it just like a lot of stuff had happened at work and I had reached kind of a breaking point. I seriously came home and I'm just bawling. And then Zach, my husband, is very much trying to kind of do like the guy thing of like, oh no, you're crying. Let's figure out some solutions.
Yeah,
like,
well,
what are you going to do? Let's fix it.
Yeah.
Fix it. And I'm just like, I don't need you to fix it. I just need to cry. And so I'm finally like, I'm doing a little bit better. I got a glass of wine. I'm like watching TV and I get your text and the number one is standing up for yourself. And I replied and said, well, I just cried really hard about that one. So I might not be the best person to talk about that. And you were so sweet in your reply. You were so encouraging. You were like, okay, well, we're going to do whatever you feel comfortable with. But, you know, those things that really make you feel something, those are probably the ones that we should push on a little bit. You'd probably have the most insight. And I was like, damn it. Okay.
I let her have a little bit of time, but like in my mind the whole time I was like, this is what we're going to do.
It has to be it.
Yes. And I've loved it though, because it's been about 3 weeks or so since we talked.
It's been a little while.
And it has really, really made me like notice those moments more in my life and like be more like intentional and conscious about them.
Yeah.
Just because I knew I was going to have to come on here and talk about it. And I was like, I don't want to be a fraud or anything here. I need to give a little boost. So that was
no frauds allowed.
Perfect. I can tell.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
So
I know she
very
said
timely.
You said like, I think your exact words were, I am horrific at that one.
All caps.
Horrific. I'm so bad at this. Like really, we're all bad at this it's like something that you have to actively pursue and get better at because we're women. If you're a man, you don't really have to try that hard to get good at this, but so I think what I'll start with is just saying that I feel like I've always had it like an easier time of standing up for other people than I have standing up for myself. And like one of the best examples that I can give, and this is the story my mom likes telling all the time, but when I was like 7 or 8, I was in this radio play, Peter Pan radio play, because we were freaking awesome.
Nice.
With one of my best friends, and I can't remember, I played the Blue Fairy. I can't remember what character she played, but one of her lines was she had to say the word ass. And she was really, and obviously it was like ass as in reference to a donkey. But she was really uncomfortable with it because she was a 7-8-year-old homeschool Christian conservative child who has been taught that any sort of bad word, including stupid, can't come out of your mouth or you'll be smited
Right to jail.
Smitten? No, smitten's a good thing.
Yeah. Anyway, you'll be struck off this planet. And so we had she was kind of like the principal of our group. This is the same woman who wouldn't allow children to wear baby doll tops for fear of it affecting the young men around.
Understandable. Completely
Stumbling block.
So I think that's all we really need to know about her. But she was, my friend was telling her that she was really uncomfortable with this word. And the grown woman was looking at a 7-year-old child trying to tell her, you have to, like, it's not that bad of a word, blah, blah, blah. And me, my little 7-8-year-old self looked at her and said, if she doesn't want to say it, she doesn't have to. Like the principal of the group. And my mom loves telling that story. She was like, you did not care what this woman had to say or what her authority was in the matter. You just wanted to make sure that your friend didn't have to do something she was uncomfortable with.
That's so sweet.
And I've been doing that since I was really little. And I've always found it so easy to do it for other people. But I've really had to learn the last 3 or 4 years to do it for myself. So What do y'all think about that? I mean, is it easier to do it for other people than it is for yourself?
100%.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, but I think like a lot of that is like, first, obviously you recognizing that you are valuable enough to set
Stand
those
up.
boundaries,
Yeah.
you know, and that people should respect them and respect your value. But I think that the other part of it that I don't think a lot of people consider is that whenever you speak for somebody else, you have complete 100% outside perspective. You can see everything cut and dry. Whenever it's for yourself, there's so much more to wrestle. There's like, I feel this way, but I don't know if that's because of my insecurities or if that's like actually how this situation is. And you just get so lost in the internal, you know, that you don't have whenever you're seeing somebody else's situation,
Right.
seeing somebody else getting mistreated, you know. It's so much harder to see a situation clearly when it's happening to you. And I think that's also a big stumbling block for, I would say, mostly women, because we try to be really intuitive about this stuff, but for men as well, who care, men who care to, you know, approach situations right. And so I think that there's there's two different sides of it.
Yeah, that's really insightful.
I think that a lot of things that we'll talk about today, I'm sure, bring gender into the playing field here. But I think for me too, age has always been a big thing, of especially whenever I very first started out in my career and working, and there would be things that I would feel like, I don't feel very good about this, but I'm the youngest person on the team, and maybe this is just how things are, or I am supposed to say yes to everything, and I am supposed to take on all the extra stuff, and it's okay. Like I'm fine. I'll just cry in my car later. It'll be okay. And so I felt that way in the beginning. And I've worked for amazing people, and I felt that way. So I think like if I'd ever worked for some not so amazing people, how I would have been. And it's interesting because right now, for the first time ever, I have an employee, I guess a direct report, Alessandra. If you're watching, you're amazing and I love you. She's so brilliant and wonderful. And she's 22 and she's exactly how old I was whenever I started. And I watch her and I watch some of the same stuff that would happen to me start to happen to her. And I'll go in and say like, we'll write this email together, or we'll call them together. This is not how it's going to be.
Yeah.
And I think like, having like the years, and I've only been, I've worked there 7 years, but that's been enough to kind of put some distance between me and like the brand new little baby that I was, of like,
Absolutely.
I don't want you to have some of the same experiences that I've had.
Yeah.
So it's so 1,000 times easier to I think step in for somebody else.
Yeah, definitely.
I did some kind of, this is going to sound like the most like narcissistic thing. I stalked my own Twitter.
I feel like everybody does
okay,
that.
good. Specifically for this though, because a couple years ago, I felt like I was like, I don't know, really holding myself back at work in the way, specifically in email. And the way that I was like asking for things, or the way that I was replying to things. And I went on kind of a rant one day and shared some things that I had decided to start doing, or some things that I had decided to stop doing to kind of assert myself a little bit more. And I brought those, if that's something
go for
I
it.
can share.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
And it's funny too, because I did it back in 2019, and then a lot of things happened in the world since then, and the way that we work changed, and since so much more of our time I think is spent on like online spaces at this point, there were some things that I went back through that I was like, oh man, I've really slipped on that, or I'm still doing that. Good for me. But one of the big ones for me that I have really stuck to is removing the word just from my vocabulary whenever I'm sending an email. What I mean by that is like, hey, I'm just checking in to see if you've had a chance to finish that thing we're supposed to work on, or hey, I just wanted to see if there's a meeting space available for me on this day, or hey, I'm just wondering if you have time to help me with this thing that's both of our responsibility. And I was like, the word just, men don't say that.
No.
They just absolutely don't. They say, here's the thing I need, here's when I need it. And none of us think that's rude, right? So it's like,
Well, not from a man.
well, exactly.
Right. Yeah.
So that was a really big one for me. limiting exclamation points was a big one too, because I felt like, I don't know if y'all feel this way, but I feel like whenever I send an email, I have to like, hey,
Yes.
Joe, I hope you're doing well. It was really great to see you at lunch the other day.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, here's the thing that I need. That's what I'm emailing about. If you can get to it by this Friday, that'd be great. If not, I need it by Wednesday. But if not Wednesday, then maybe by next Friday. I don't know. Just whenever you have time. Thank you so much for reading my email.
And then the response you get is either no response or you get thanks sent from my iPhone.
100%, right? Or like, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sounds
Sure.
good. Got it.
Like, oh, okay. So it's like the time and the labor that I was spending, I think, like cushioning and fluffing my emails was so big, and it wasn't, I mean, for stuff that doesn't matter, for stuff that's a yes or no question that any man in the world would just send the question and not even say thanks, or not even like use punctuation or anything, right?
Yeah.
Smiley faces were a really big one too. Like, I feel like I'm being rude in my emails if I don't have at least one smiley face, but if I use more than one, it's like, oh, I'm crazy.
Yeah.
You gotta stop. You gotta cut it out, you know?
Yeah.
So those were a few of the big ones.
I do the just thing too.
Yes.
I feel like whenever you're sending an email, and this is another one of those things that a lot of people recommend that you remove it from your vocabulary in order to come off as like, just to set yourself up for more success and not like continually filter yourself to make yourself feel as though you're being more palatable, right? The word just feels like there's like an undermining tone to it, or like you're kind of already apologizing for interrupting their day or something. It's like, I'm just doing this. I'm like, I'm sorry I've interrupted you, but I just need this.
Yeah, it's a cushion.
It is a cushion. It's like you're apologizing in advance for what you're doing, but you have every right to ask them those questions.
Anytime I've ever asked for someone's time, I've always felt like, oh God, they're so busy. They have a lot going on, or like, I'm sorry to bother you. Or I've always been super guilty of saying, hi, I'm putting 30 minutes on your calendar. I don't think it'll take more than 15. I swear I'll be brief. Like, nobody has ever thought twice about just walking in and sitting down in my office when I'm in the middle of something and taking 45 minutes of my time. But then I feel like I need to apologize for that, and it's just exhausting.
Yeah. But I don't know. It's one of those things. It's kind of making me think it's like we put so much pressure, and it's such an old world thing where we put so much pressure in the way that we present ourselves. But then there is a lot of joy and a lot of enjoyment that can be found in somebody just being authentically themselves. And if we can find that a little bit, then I think things get better on all sides, right? It's for yourself, but also for others. I feel like all of this starts as a inside job, though, like getting to the point where you feel like you can speak up for yourself. Like it's not just something that you wake up one morning and you're like, I'm not very good at this, I'm going to do better. And you can just automatically flip a switch and start speaking up for yourself. I wrote a note saying that you have to have like the discipline. You have to discipline your self-talk first. And you have to discover your voice, and you have to get used to hearing yourself in a positive way. And I also said, if you don't demand kindness and respect from yourself, you can't effectively demand it from others. So, like as far as self-talk goes, if you're constantly being really negative on yourself in your quiet life, like in your inside voice or communications or whatever conversations that you have with yourself, if you're constantly being so negative and demeaning and stuff like that, how on earth are you ever going to expect yourself to be able to demand other people treat you better? Or even like in the moment that it's really needed, trust yourself to actually speak up for yourself and demand better, because you're not demanding better from your own self. And I think the very first step to being better at speaking up for yourself is speaking up and advocating for yourself on your own behalf with yourself first, because once you've overcome that, then everything else I feel like follows.
I don't feel like I'm somebody who's ever struggled with negative self-talk. I don't think I self-talk. And I know like subconsciously we do. But I think like whenever I've ever been going through anything and I've really sat down to think like, how do I feel about that? I'm always like kind of conflicted and almost don't know how to put my finger on it, because I'm very, I'm just very like go, and like very task oriented. And if I've got a lot going on at work, then that's where my energy is. If I've got something going on in my family, that's where my energy is. And like whenever I get to a point where I don't have like a crisis or anything happening and I'm just kind of alone with my thoughts, I feel like I'm just kind of blank sometimes. And so then like whenever the meltdown I had pre-podcast was very just like, it was almost like all the things that I didn't really stop to think about how I felt about just kind of all crashed in and let me feel them all at once. And then it was like one thing on top of another, on top of another, on top of another. And like you're fighting through like trying to be positive or trying to say like, this is not as big of a disaster as my brain thinks it is right now. And it's like, I don't know, for me, it happens like once every 6 months or so that I'm like, okay, you got to spend some time with you because you haven't really been doing that.
Yeah.
So the idea of like pausing and doing something like that every day, the hard part to me for that would not be like pulling out positive things to say. It would be just the like thinking about it in general. And I don't even like to say that, like, I don't think about myself because I think about myself constantly, you know, but like really, I don't know, thinking about how I feel about myself is one of those things I just don't really stop to do.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Well, this topic is like I know everyone struggles with this topic, but I'm actually learning a lot today. Just sitting here, kind of
taking it in,
and really trying to figure out like, you know, what that means to me as well. So I don't have a lot to say, but it's just really hard to like face yourself in the mirror and like tell yourself those things for some reason. Like it's almost as like you're not worthy to be told that by yourself.
Do you think it's like I am not the one to decide this type of thing? I think that's why it feels weird for me, is because like to stand in front of a mirror and be like, I am so proud of you.
Yeah.
I think is very necessary, and
it's hard.
It's something that I should probably do, to be honest.
Yeah.
But I think there is like this behind the scenes feeling of like, but I'm not the one to decide this. I can say this to myself all day, but I'm not the one to decide.
If you don't, who does? Like, who do you allow to decide that for yourself then? Other people?
Everybody else.
Everyone.
Yeah.
I mean, I was genuinely asking because I was like, I don't know. I've practiced this for a long time, and that concept for me is that like, because prior to my really working on this and getting to the point where I feel comfortable speaking up for myself, and I worked in sports for many years, so I had to in order to survive. I don't think I've ever had that thought that it's like I'm not the one who decides this. It's just been like I just kind of floated through life reacting to things the way that I instinctually knew how to, until I got to the point that I was like, I had that realization, like, this is my work. This is what I do. I didn't ever, like, prior to that.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, I didn't think about it until Katie was saying what she was saying, and then I was like, oh, those are the words for what I'm feeling right now.
I don't know. Like, you really do. I think initially you don't have to go into that believing it. I feel like believing it comes after.
Yeah. I think
and
so.
that's hard. It's scary because you're like, am I a fraud?
Right.
Like, do I believe this about myself, or am I just saying words like to my face?
I'm definitely not saying that because of how I feel is like a reason that I don't think it should be done. It's just kind of, in fact, I would say it's more of a reason that I should do it. You know, it's like so that I push myself to let myself be that authority in my life. But I am curious if there's like other work that kind of needs to be done alongside that or even before that in order for that to be effective for my internal beliefs.
Yeah. Do you feel like that's an important first step though, or like a better first step to kind of get to the point where you're speaking up for yourself in front of others, or do you feel like it's swapped for you where you can do the others thing before you do it for yourself?
I can do the others thing just fine.
Yeah.
I thankfully I've learned how to over the past few years. Like I I will stand up for myself. I will speak my thoughts. If you don't hear me now, you'll hear me later. If you don't understand me now, you'll understand me later, and it's fine. But it's my internal dialogue that I will not stand up for myself in my internal dialogue.
Stand up for yourself against yourself.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe it's just because that's the process that I took was like, I had to own it for myself before I really started seeing it be something that I could easily do with others. And I had to be my own reason why I was doing it to others. So the notes that I took, I was like, oh yeah, this makes sense. This is how it's supposed to be. But again, everybody's so different.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Do you feel like in those moments where I do a lot of going back home after an interaction and being like, I should have said this. And I think it's like my brain's never firing quick enough in the moment whenever somebody has like been disrespectful or even if it's not for myself. Like I've noticed like a big one for me is somebody at work or in life, like they make a joke or they make a comment that's like hurtful and like a really, really, what's the opposite of a hot take? Like a really cold take. And I'm like,
bad take.
A bad take.
Yeah.
There it is. And I'm like, that, like, I think about it after the fact and I think I should have said something, but it's like my brain doesn't work quick enough. But then I'm never the type, like, I am never going to be the type to reach out after the fact and say, hey, I wanted to address that thing earlier that you said. Or like if I have, in the times in my life that I've gotten a, hey, I want to address something you said to me, text or a conversation, I'm like, like, I don't know what to do about it. And, it's just like, I don't know. It's, I wish that I had a way of being not like more present in the moment, but more like quick on my feet to call stuff out while it's happening. Cause then I always feel like when something's passed, I'm like, okay, well, my opportunity passed. I'll just feel bad about it on the inside forever. You know?
Yeah.
I've kind of, I don't mind. And I do this a lot in conversations. Like, I have family members who will make really off color jokes. And, I mean, my dad's, I love my dad to death, but a lot of times he just says things in the presence of family that's not okay. And he's like, it's family, it's fine. But for me, I'm like, there's certain things that I'm like, I don't want you to feel like you can say that around me. I said, saying no is a form of speaking up for yourself. It doesn't have to be some long form, eloquent, thought out, not like monologue of a thing. It can be simple and powerful all at once. And I think what goes alongside that as well is that sometimes speaking up for yourself is not speaking. And like sometimes whenever I'm in certain situations where like somebody makes a joke that's really off color, I don't laugh. I'll just sit there with a straight face. And that's like enough for me to get across the point that like, I'm not gonna, because it makes people uncomfortable when you're not like laughing to be polite. And a lot of times I feel like I will laugh to be polite to people, but I've gotten to the point recently where like if somebody says something or does something, I'm not gonna engage with it because I don't want to encourage that behavior. I don't want to be seen encouraging that behavior or engaging with that. And it has really made people really mad. Like I've got people in my life that I have strained relationships with now because where everybody else is being polite and laughing or acting interested in something that they're talking about, I'm just not engaging. And to them, that's me being a bitch. So, but I'm just like, I'm not going to force myself to be somebody that I'm not in this circumstance. And I feel like that is as much speaking up for yourself as it is, or advocating for yourself as it is, if you were to actually say something at times.
That's a gold mine, what you're talking about too, because how many times have we undermined ourselves being polite? You know, like I mean, like courtesy laughing at something that's not funny or, or not saying no, or like, oh, okay. I'll do it. That's fine. Or not asking for more money or not asking for like the things that we think are uncouth and wrong, or like we're going to be seen in a rude light. I mean, every time.
I think speaking up for yourself in a situation where in your heart the outcome you in your heart know is not going to be good, and the repercussions of that, they're going to be hard. For instance, not my last job, but the one before that, I had to ask for a raise and they wouldn't give it to me, and I had to leave, and I did not want to leave. But in my heart, knowing that I was about to have to ask for a raise, which was one, uncomfortable because they had a baby and expected me to work at the same rate that I was for 2 other kids as switching to 3.
And a newborn, no less.
And so in my heart, I knew that conversation was not going to go well, but I had to speak up for myself because my husband was like, they're lowballing you, and I don't want to watch you go through that. But it was just like, I had to do it for myself and for the future of my family, and it was what had to be done, but it was so hard because I didn't want to leave, you know. But yeah, I think, speaking up for things that for yourself is really hard, and especially when you don't think it's gonna turn out okay.
It's just like the classic case, though, of like you getting hired for a job and then they slowly put on more responsibilities that are outside of your pay grade. And then you're like, you go and you ask for a raise, and then they're like, we can't. And you're like, but you're asking me to do so much more. I saw this TikTok of this girl that was like, whenever you're in those situations, you're not asking for a raise, you're asking for a pay adjustment.
Yes.
Because now this is not like, hey, I've done really well for you, I think I could earn more.
Right.
It's hey, you've put more unexpected responsibilities outside of what I normally do. And if I go and look up what other people are making with the same responsibilities, I should be making about this much.
Yeah.
So I'm asking for a pay adjustment, not a raise. Because that's what you're actually doing.
That's a great way to put it. And looking back now, like, I probably would have put it that way if I had just had the words, but I was just an emotional wreck.
Well, don't dwell on that because they still would have said no, unfortunately.
Unfortunately they would have, and it was time for me to leave that job.
Well, how does that feel though? Like, you took a chance to really stand up for yourself and speak up for yourself in that moment, and having somebody I feel like this happens more often than not, maybe, but having somebody who doesn't meet you where you're at or try to find a compromise or like respect that you're doing something that you have every right to do. Like, does that make you feel more or less confident going into the next situation where you have to do that?
Both.
Yeah.
I think that experience was really hard, and it was a life lesson. And I think you learn from those experiences and you take away different things. So I think now I'm not sure if I would approach it any differently. I might. Yeah. I don't really have a solid answer.
Well, that's okay though. I mean, that's the point of all of this though, right? And I think any of us could probably give an example of when we've spoken up for ourselves, and even 2 different examples that could be pretty related, and depending on who's on the other side of it or the situation surrounding it or the context or whatever, that you're going to come out of it feeling differently. No matter how similar the outcome really is.
Right.
It's
I
just
think
curious.
that the difference is like you thinking that this is something that you want, and then you truly deep down believing that this is what is right. Because I've found that whenever I believe that something would be really the right way to do things, whether that's the right way to pay me or the right way to treat me or the right way we should approach a certain situation, if I really believe that this is right, and then I'm going to go into it and nothing can sway me. And if anything, this may sound harsh, but if anything, if you have a response that does not, that implies that you, let's just continue to use the example that we're talking about, which is, I believe that it is the right thing for you to give me this raise because you have put significantly more responsibility on my plate. And you respond in the way that she did. For me, it's like the switch goes off where I'm like, I'm sorry that you're not emotionally intelligent enough to accept this situation, but that's where we're at. Like, if you can't meet me where I'm at, then we're just on different playing fields, and I don't feel bad about that.
Yeah.
You're just in a different place mentally and emotionally, and that's fine. But this is what is the right thing objectively in this situation. And so, but not every situation is so clear cut. And that's where I think that a lot of things do come down to, like, is this just something that you feel like you want or should want, or is it something that you genuinely believe is right? Because I feel like it's easier to stand for things whenever you like, no, this is the right situation, or this is the right way to approach this, or this is the right thing to do,
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, as a major people pleaser, and not wanting to disappoint anybody or put anybody in a situation where they feel stuck.
Yeah.
I have cried leaving jobs.
Yeah.
Like, I've gone into to my boss and been like, I can't do this anymore. I have to leave, and bawled. And because I don't want to put anybody in that situation. It's uncomfortable to do that.
But they have you in a bad situation too.
Yeah. And so.
And that helps exactly none whenever you're in this situation. Like, I love what you said about looking at it objectively. And I think it's really cool that you can look at yourself objectively and like that bird's eye view, because I'm everything you're saying. And I know, like, I work for a large corporation. You work in like more like one-on-one, like household
almost
situations,
like small
like
business
that.
type
Yeah.
of.
Yes.
Yeah.
But it's like, everything that you're saying, I feel like I'm going to start crying because it's like, I've like, your story is, it is unique to you, but it is not unique to like, I mean, whether you're on like the micro level of one family household or whether you work for a multi-million-dollar company, they look at you like you have just like pulled out a gun and threatened their life whenever you're saying, could you possibly toss me a couple of extra crumbs? And like, I'm positive for you, what you asked for was not unreasonable, and it was on par with what it was probably, if you're anything like me, was probably a little less than you deserve.
It was
It
too.
was it was 20% less.
Yeah.
I mean, every time. And so it's like, you work yourself up and you're like, okay, I can do this. And then the second that they start coming back with anything else, you're like, oh God, am I being unreasonable? Like, have I asked for too much? Or, like, you care about me and I care about you. But in those situations, like, they don't value you. Like, you don't have value. No. And it's like, everybody else in your life can tell you that. And that's literally the meltdown I had before this podcast was about pay. And I'm so glad we're talking about it, because that's like, to me, the number one way that women get just absolutely shafted in the workplace or in home. I mean, don't even, like, this isn't even including like the women that stay home and then don't have the financial autonomy and don't get to make those decisions. And it's like, because your work doesn't have value, your work's the most valuable of all time. And it's just like, it's so frustrating, but it's so interesting to hear that the experiences at a micro level and a macro level are identical.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, we've talked a lot about how it all applies to the workplace and stuff. And I'd like to hear a little bit more about how Delana finds it so easy with others. But
no kidding.
I am curious about, like, on a personal level, like, some of the people that I find hardest to stand up to are my family members. Like, I just find it so hard, and because they know me and like, they know exactly what my vulnerable spots are and my weak spots. And I know theirs too. And I won't be, fake and say that I don't ever use that to my advantage, because I do, and we all do. But I just find that my family members are some of the hardest people to do that with. And then my friends, obviously, like my close friends and stuff, I have a little bit more leniency in how I approach things. But the further away you get, like, you've got your family, you've got your friends, you've got your acquaintances, you've got, your work people, but the further away you get, the easier it gets. Yes. Right. So, I'm just kind of curious to know about what that looks like for you guys.
I would say I've been successful, but that has been the hardest, because like, between such intimate relationships, that's where things get the most emotionally confusing. And that's why I feel like it's so hard to stand up for yourself, because you're like, what should I be it's all confusing.
Yeah.
And I think it's the same thing in marriage. I think it's the same thing with very, very close friends. I think it's the same thing with close family, you know, because there's just so much inside of you so much internal dialogue that you're trying to figure out, you know, between what they've said and what you think and what you believe and what they believe and the influences that they've had on your life, and then other things that you're trying to, like, there's just so much. And so I think that has been one of the hardest.
I have in recent years and in college really kind of made this a big thing for me, but I'm a very hard yes or hard no person. There's like, and I have a lot of my gray moments too, but I've just become a lot more stern. There's certain things that I don't mind being really hard and fast on, but those lines get a little bit more blurred with my family members.
Yeah.
But that being said, having gone through college and just even the last handful of years of my life hardening me up a little bit and like helping to build up my backbone, I have gotten better about it. And I'm not sure if your family reacts to you that way or if you've had like that similar, it's been recent years kind of thing. But my family, they're just like, I don't know. It's like the rigidity that I've kind of developed on certain things is like new, and they're like, whoa.
Kind of a good example of standing up for yourself and the right thing is the situation about an hour ago when I got that text from my sister saying that her husband has COVID. And my first thought was, I am going to have to disappoint my family by saying we can't come.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I didn't text back. I was like, oh my gosh, I can't be the one to tell them that this is not right and for us and that we're not going to be able to come to Mother's Day.
Right.
And so my husband texted the group and was like, guys, I'm so sorry, but we have to keep my grandmother and her 2 elderly friends in mind this week, and we're not going to be able to come. And so I feel like that was kind of a good example of me kind of like shriveling up in my shell and being like,
I know what I should say in this moment, but I'm not ready.
Say, but I don't want this to be happening.
Yeah.
But we need in those moments, like I love that, like where you felt like you couldn't say it or like it was too uncomfortable, like your husband stepped up for you and he was the one to do it. And I don't think of that as like him speaking for you. I think like he knew that would be hard for you, and he moved in on that for you, and that's what a gift that is, you know.
It for sure is. So
you need that support.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, the second I got that text, I knew that we weren't going to be able to go. I knew that in my head and my heart. I was like, this is not happening this week. It's, probably we're going to reschedule, and that's okay. I think for me, it was like, automatically I thought, we're going to miss out because my family might have just like gone ahead and done it. But because we said like we can't come, they were like, okay, let's reschedule.
Yeah.
And that's that,
That's the funny thing is we spend a lot of time, especially with this, is we spend a lot of time like, I don't know, thinking of the worst possible way that somebody can respond to something, and then once you actually do
everyone's going to be mad at me.
It doesn't always do that.
That, I think, now that you bring that up, that I think is one of the things that I feel like I've really thankfully grasped a hold of, and I catch myself in it all the time whenever I'm thinking about like, okay, I'm going to talk to my boss about this and I'm going to present it this way and blah 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 blah, and then I'm like, okay, but then what if he says this and then this and then this happens, but that is one of the things that I feel like I've gotten really good at catching myself in is I'm like, dude, you literally have no idea what's going to happen. Why are you sending yourself through the ringer on this? Because I've realized that I'm doing it to myself. Like, I'm the one that's sending myself through the ringer when I have literally no idea what's actually going to happen.
Yes.
Well,
and control what you can.
Yeah. I think you can recognize, like, another note that I made is that like some people just don't know how to communicate healthfully. Yeah. Like they can't take anybody confronting them about stuff. They can't take anybody standing up on things, and like no matter how you do it or how you say it, they're not going to respond well. And I think in those moments, just understanding that like it doesn't matter, there's not going to be a good outcome. just don't do it. Like, I think part of like standing up for yourself and speaking up for yourself is also protecting your energy and protecting like your efforts and things. And if there's somebody on the other side of it that you know for a fact, no matter what you do, how you say it, you know, how you present yourself, how well thought out it is and researched and whatever. If you have 14 people behind you who will stand up for you and say, yes, this is right, this person is still not going to get it, just don't do it.
Yes.
It's not worth your time and energy.
Yes, I agree. And that's actually what I think has helped me to start to stand really firm in like what I believe the right response to this thing is, you know, like asking for more pay, what I believe the right response to that. Because if you can stop yourself from sending yourself through all the anxiety ringers of, even if they're justified, like, well, this person has reacted this way in the past, so they're probably going to react that way again. Okay, well, just remove that from the situation for a moment. You have no idea what's actually going to happen, even if you kind of do. You have no idea what's actually going to happen. And that opens up the opportunity for you to be able to more clearly see what you believe the right response is if you stop trying to predict what's actually going to happen and what you actually need and believe is right from that situation. Then they can respond however they want, and if that doesn't align with what is the right thing to do in that situation, then you can see it more clearly and respond to it more clearly. What you're talking about, I was experience with my dad. I don't have any connection with my dad.
I've listened to the podcast.
She's a listener.
Oh, yes.
I'm a fan.
Yes. I've gone through, like, I've thought of so many conversations that I would have with him, you know, and it's one of those things where whenever I've thought about actually going to talk to him, where I would start to get that anxiety of like, what if he says this? What if he says that? What if blah, 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 blah. And then I'd just be like, well, you have no idea what's actually going to happen. And then through that, I would be able to be like, okay, well, then this is what I think should happen in that situation. And then I had this piece of just kind of like, okay, so whatever happens, I know what the right thing is.
Yeah.
But also that's come through a lot of like me, learning that like everything that he does is to turn everything back around on you. And so I think there's a level of expectations that you should have in those kinds of situations where it's like, I know this person is going to try to turn things around on me. And I have to be prepared to just kind of like ignore it basically and diffuse it and not respond to it.
I think sometimes in situations like that, when you're approaching somebody that you know that you will never be able to get a response out of the way that you would want to and that you would feel satisfied in, I think there's a kind of a trap that you put yourself in, that like you think that the satisfaction would come from just having said it. Said it out loud to their face. But I think at times whenever you put yourself in that situation, it's not enough. Like, it's not enough. So finding that satisfaction in yourself where you recognize like, I know it's right and that's all that I need. I don't need to say it. I don't have to have them verify it or you know, like find value in it or change who they are, because 9 times out of 10 that's not going to happen. But being able to find that within yourself and feel satisfied within yourself is so much more important than having been able to actually speak that out in front of somebody. I found exactly that. Like, I've found a lot of peace in just like knowing what the right thing would be in this situation and knowing that that's not going to come from this situation. I can make peace with it, not ever having done anything about it.
Kind of on the subject of not just family, but like personal versus like work and everything that we've moved away from. Something that I think is super kind of was a game changer for me is that I look back on like college, right? And I was not my best self in college. If you'd asked me in college, I would have been absolutely perfect and wonderful, and everything that I had to say was important and should be heard and should be the loudest one in the room. Like you would have never asked me on a podcast then. But it's like, I think like in those days I was super comfortable speaking out in group settings and like, especially in a lot of the ways that you and I knew each other at that time. But I had this like underlying thing with my family. I have an amazing family. They're good people and they loved me really well my whole life. But I kind of felt like I couldn't disagree about anything. And some of the things you were talking about, the guilt you feel of not going to Mother's Day, like I need to be a good daughter.
Yeah.
You know, and for me in those days, being a good daughter meant having all the same beliefs and having all the same values and speaking about things the same way and like dating the person that you would have picked out for me. And like, and I still like, I value my parents so much and their opinions are so impactful to me. But then as I've gotten older, it's been kind of like an opposite shift now where like in those group, like work kind of settings, I feel a little bit more like, okay, I need to sit back and I need to observe and I don't need to be the one that speaks up. But like with my family, I've gotten to a point now where I'm like, we're not going to see eye to eye on everything. We don't have to see eye to eye. I don't want to fight with you. And if you're trying to fight with me, that's going to suck. And I don't want to do it. But like, if we have to, I feel like we love each other and we can make our way through it. And so I feel like I've gotten better at standing up to the people who I know are going to love me through it.
Yeah, no matter what.
Yeah. And then the other thing for me, and this is something, again, to throw back to college, to throw back to Texas Tech for a second, is like, I think like the thing that revolutionized my relationships in general, whether it's with peripheral people or my husband or my parents or friends, is like, I don't have to be right all the time. I do not like, and I think that I had this insanely high need to be right whenever I was younger and like need to rephrase something that someone already said because I can say it better. Like my opinion matters so much. And my opinion does matter, but like, I've just gotten to the point now where I think like
it's not a God complex.
It doesn't
anymore.
matter the most. It doesn't matter the most.
No,
Right?
like, and whenever you're stuck in that, and like people who have to be right all the time, they argue dirty. They just aren't. I don't know. It's not a good situation. And so I say all the time at work now, like, I mean, it's fine. Like we can disagree. I've been wrong before. I've been wrong all the time. I'm wrong like 10 times a day at minimum. So it's okay. But then because I have that now and because I have this mindset that I don't always have to be right, I feel like it's made me really attached to the things that I do feel are right and the things that I do feel like, okay, this needs to be addressed, because before it was like I picked every battle and like I mean, God,
as weird as it is, I feel like that stage is necessary.
Yes,
because whenever you go from somebody who just cannot speak up for themselves at all, and then you find a little bit of ground to stand on, you know, through your growing years, facing situations, unfun stuff, you find a little bit of sense of self and some ground to stand on. And then oftentimes you go from that to flinging the other way of just kind of like, my thoughts are the only thing that matters.
Yes.
God complex all the way, you know? And if you're self-reflective enough, come back from that and find a healthy middle ground of like, my thoughts are not the only thing that matters. I don't always say it right or better. You know, I don't always do it right or better, because I feel like I went through the same stage in, I would say probably a couple years ago, even just that I was like getting to the peak of like this God complex of just kind of like, I'm the only one that can do it.
Yeah.
Nobody else. Don't let anybody else try because I'm only going to do it right. And, now I've really come down, thankfully have realized that and come down out of that and just been kind of like, just a much more peaceful place to live.
Yeah, right.
You know, like whenever you're not
Yes.
playing God, oh my
You're
gosh,
not putting so much pressure on yourself.
yeah, you're not
anymore.
you don't feel like everything is dependent on you, you know, and you're carrying all the burden
and you don't take things as personally either.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember in those days, just everything was such an attack on me and the whole world revolved around me. And
because
like,
you're trying to uphold.
yeah. And it's like so little of anything is about you ever. Right. Like, and so it's just, I don't know. I don't like it. And I think, I mean, probably every year of my life, I'll look back and say, I wasn't really my best self. And that's good, right? Like I want to die my best self.
Yeah.
But
Right.
Yeah.
it's just like, ooh, woof.
Yeah. That's another thing that we send ourselves through the ringer for, is just like past stuff when we were always doing the best we could with what we knew.
Yes.
And I think that we have to have so much grace for ourselves and just be like, okay, cool. I handled it that way. There's some things that are very necessary regret. Like if you know that like, oh my gosh, I knew I was doing the wrong thing in that moment, you know, I feel like that's a different story. But to look back on all the places where you didn't speak up when you should have, hindsight is always 20/20.
What are y'all looking forward to this weekend?
I'm looking forward to hopefully getting a video project that I've been working on for a while done, and then also editing our next episode that we're posting on Monday.
Which one is that?
Friendships in Your 20s.
That's right. That's going to be a good one.
Fun.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to this event being over and sleeping in tomorrow.
Woohoo.
Amen.
A little bit. It's Mother's Day, so I have to get up at some point.
Oh gosh, what am I looking forward to now?
Oh, your plans changed.
Oh yeah, she already got the best of her week so far.
I did.
Yeah.
We went and saw Coldplay in concert last night, and it was incredible. I guess I'm just looking forward to spending the weekend with Bryce.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
It's fun. And I am looking forward to getting a bunch of stuff done around the house in preparation for my trip and spending time with Zach and our little baby Rocket.
Yeah.
Yay.
And Turks and Caicos.
Well, you know, that too.
Yeah.
No
That's
big
so
deal.
exciting.
Yes.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast
Y'all,
with us.
thanks for having me.
This is so much fun.
I'll be back
So
for the
great.
Taylor Swift episode.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And others.
100%.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, great. Thanks so much for hanging out with us again for this week's episode of the Womanly Podcast. Be sure to follow us on all of our social media to hang out with us in between episodes and see pieces of our conversations that we don't get to include in these episodes, plus all of our bloopery humanness. We're on Instagram at Womanly Pod and TikTok, YouTube, and Twitter at Womanly Podcast. We hope to hang out with you more there. Have a super womanly week.